What if a list claiming to represent the most famous people in the world inadvertently exposed a global imbalance long concealed by numbers, algorithms, and Western-centered narratives? And why, out of hundreds of millions of public figures across continents, only one Asian name ultimately made it through, standing alone and forcing the world to rethink the very meaning of fame itself? That question did not emerge from a vacuum. It surfaced on October 15, 2024, precisely when the American digital media outlet AOL released an article with a title that sounded neutral yet was laden with ideological weight. Who is the most famous person in the world? Meet 15 global icons. Beneath that seemingly simple phrase lay a surprise that quickly sent shockwaves through the global cultural ecosystem. Not because of who was included, but because of who stood alone. Jungkook, the only Asian artist. The only figure from the East placed on equal footing with presidents of the United States, tech billionaires, Western pop royalty, and the gods of world football. According to AOL, the list was not arranged as a ranking. There was no first, second, or last place. Everyone was positioned in no particular order. Yet this is precisely where the paradox lies. When order is removed, context becomes everything. When rankings are eliminated, presence itself becomes the message. And when 14 names originate from Western ecosystems, North America, Europe, Latin America, the presence of a single Asian name ceases to be mere representation. It becomes a statement, a loud, almost impolite signal that the world has shifted further than legacy institutions are willing to acknowledge. AOL explained that the selection of these 15 global icons was based on modern metrics of fame: social media following, audience engagement, intensity of media coverage, award achievements, endorsement power, and the individual's ability to remain relevant through influence, skill, knowledge, and even controversy. Fame here is no longer about who appears most frequently on television screens, but about who is hardest to ignore in a fragmented digital world. And within this new definition, Jungkook emerged not as a forced exception, but as an undeniable anomaly. For years, Jungkook has been known as BTS's Golden Magne, a label that sounds affectionate yet often reduces the complexity of his artistry. The AOL article, however, did not use idle language. It used the language of capital. Jungkook was described as a multifaceted billionaire, a phrase rarely, almost taboo, when applied to Asian artists in mainstream American media. He was portrayed as a singer, rapper, songwriter, director, record producer, and art enthusiast. Not one role, not two, but a spectrum, an identity that cannot be confined within a single industrial box. What makes this even more striking is AOL's conscious acknowledgement of the numerical paradox. At the time the article was written, Jungkook only had around 9.4 million followers on his official Instagram account. Compared to Cristiano Ronaldo's nearly 700 million followers or Dwayne Johnson's almost 400 million, this figure appears modest. Yet it is precisely at this point that the narrative pivots. AOL did not measure Jungkook against Hollywood stars using old standards. Instead, it emphasized that despite having fewer followers, Jungkook had shattered records once considered impossible for K-pop artists. In other words, he was not playing on the same field. He was creating a new one as a solo artist. Jungkook did not take the safe route. He collaborated with Western musicians and penetrated markets that for decades had positioned Asian artists as exotic or alternative. Left and Right with Charlie Puth and Seven with Latto were not merely cross-cultural collaborations. They became global hits topping international charts. Seven made history by debuting at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, the Global 200, and the US charts, while also becoming the first song in Spotify history to surpass 1 billion streams in a remarkably short time. These numbers are not just impressive, they are disruptive. And the milestones did not stop there. Dreamers, the song Jungkook performed for the 2022 FIFA World Cup, positioned him as the face of Asia on the most-watched sporting stage on the planet. In January 2023, he once again made history as the first Asian artist whose live performance on YouTube surpassed 100 million views. Each of these achievements, taken individually, might still be debated, but when assembled into a pattern, they form something far greater than a music career. They constitute structural evidence that the center of gravity in global culture is shifting. AOL even cited Jungkook's 2024 interview with Rolling Stone, in which he candidly admitted that he still feels nervous, especially as a solo artist, despite coming from a group that has become a global phenomenon. The statement sounds simple, even fragile, yet that is precisely its power. Amid his status as a global icon, Jungkook does not project invulnerability. He reveals the human behind the myth. And perhaps unknowingly, that is what makes him even more relevant in an era when audiences are growing weary of manufactured perfection. The list of 15 global icons according to AOL includes names long considered untouchable: Cristiano Ronaldo and Lionel Messi from sports, Taylor Swift, Beyoncé, Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, Selena Gomez, and Jennifer Lopez from music and entertainment, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos from technology and business, Dwayne Johnson and Kylie Jenner as symbols of personal branding power, and Barack Obama as a global political figure. This is an exclusive club, one that for decades has been almost entirely closed to Asia. And now, one Asian name stands there without a footnote. Reactions were inevitable. Army communities around the world, including in Indonesia, celebrated this achievement as a symbolic moment. The hashtag Jungkook dominated social media trends. A post on X by the account at Ellie_Cook, sharing a snippet of the AOL article, garnered thousands of likes and reposts within a short time. But beneath the euphoria emerged deeper, more uncomfortable, and far more important questions. Does this recognition mark a permanent shift in how the world views Asian artists? Or is Jungkook simply an exception too large to ignore? At this point, the story ceases to be mere entertainment news. It becomes a case study in cultural power, about who gets to be called a global icon, and about the invisible boundaries that are beginning to collapse in the digital era. Jungkook does not merely represent K-pop. He carries the weight of representing a continent, an industry, and a generation that has long been pushed to the margins. And when AOL, an American media outlet, openly places him at the center of the global stage, the world is forced to confront a new reality. The definition of fame has changed, and that change has come from a direction long underestimated. The question now is no longer why Jungkook is on that list. The question is, what happens after the world realizes that he is not standing alone by coincidence, but because the global system is not yet ready to accept more than one? And if a single name is enough to shake an old narrative, how powerful will the cultural earthquake be when that door truly opens? If global fame has long been understood as a natural outcome of Western dominance in media, technology, and economics, then Jungkook's presence on AOL's list of global icons is not merely a statistical anomaly, but a systemic disruption. He resembles an error too perfect to erase, too real to ignore, and too large to be diminished in meaning. The question therefore shifts. Is the world truly ready to accept that the center of cultural influence no longer revolves exclusively around the American and European axis? For decades, the concept of the global icon has been shaped by the same institutions: Western media, major labels, American-based distribution platforms, and award systems born from specific value frameworks. Within this system, Asian artists have often appeared as regional phenomena, as markets, or as fleeting trends. They were rarely positioned at the center of the narrative. Even when their popularity surged, the language used to describe them remained limiting: K-pop phenomenon, Asian wave, or niche market. The AOL article, however, subtly yet firmly dismantles that old language by placing Jungkook on the same list as Barack Obama, Elon Musk, and Cristiano Ronaldo. AOL is not merely comparing popularity. It is equating weight of influence. This is a crucial distinction that often goes unnoticed. Popularity can be temporary, viral, or tied to momentum. Influence, by contrast, implies durability, the ability to shape discourse, and the power to affect multiple sectors simultaneously. In this context, Jungkook is no longer viewed as a product of the Korean entertainment industry, but as a global cultural actor operating on the same level as figures who actively shape the world. What makes this situation even more compelling is the way AOL frames the metrics of fame. The outlet explicitly states that modern relevance is not measured solely by follower counts, but also by engagement, media coverage, awards, and even controversy. This is an implicit acknowledgement that the digital age has dismantled old hierarchies. An artist no longer needs hundreds of millions of followers to dominate global conversation. What they need is resonance. And it is precisely here that Jungkook demonstrates a form of power that is deeply unsettling to the old system. Every step of Jungkook's solo career appears designed to pierce boundaries once considered permanent. When 7 was released and immediately debuted at #1 on the Billboard Hot 100, Global 200, and US charts, many attempted to explain it away as a byproduct of BTS's massive fanbase. That explanation quickly collapsed when the song surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify, breaking beyond fandom and entering the realm of global public consumption. The track dominated radio airplay, permeated multilingual social media content, and drew attention from mainstream media outlets that typically hesitate to give extensive coverage to Asian artists. A similar pattern emerged with Dreamers, the official song of the 2022 FIFA World Cup. The World Cup is not merely a sporting event. It is a global ritual that unites billions of eyes. By positioning Jungkook as one of its musical faces, FIFA implicitly acknowledged his cross-cultural appeal. This was no longer about K-pop or Asia. It was about who could speak to the world in a shared, universally understood voice. And Jungkook achieved this without erasing his identity. Perhaps the most radical element of AOL's recognition lies in its depiction of Jungkook as a multifaceted billionaire. This phrase extends beyond financial wealth to encompass cultural capital. Jungkook is portrayed as a multidisciplinary artist, someone who not only performs in front of the camera, but is deeply involved in the creative processes behind it. Singer, rapper, songwriter, director, record producer, art enthusiast. Each label adds another layer, making him resistant to simplification. In an industry accustomed to confining Asian artists to narrow categories, this complexity itself becomes an act of resistance. Notably, amid all these achievements, Jungkook does not cultivate an arrogant or untouchable public persona. In an interview with Rolling Stone cited by AOL, he admits that he still feels nervous, especially as a solo artist. Read superficially, this might sound like ordinary humility, yet within the context of global fame, it functions as a reminder that icons are not synonymous with cold invulnerability. There is vulnerability there, and it is precisely this vulnerability that renders Jungkook's influence more human and, paradoxically, more universal. Public reaction to the list reflects a broader tension. On one side, there was widespread celebration among ARMY communities worldwide. In Indonesia, the hashtag Jungkook dominated timelines, with thousands of posts framing the achievement as a symbolic victory for Asia. A post by the X account at Ellie_Cook, sharing a snippet of the AOL article, went viral, demonstrating the intense emotional resonance of this recognition. On the other side, there was a conspicuous silence from segments of the Western industry. No major statements, no open debate, as if the system itself was attempting to process something it did not fully understand. That silence speaks louder than criticism ever could. It reveals that Jungkook's presence on the list is not mere entertainment news, but a challenge to the long-standing narrative of who is entitled to occupy the global spotlight. Asian artists have often been treated as guests on the world stage. With AOL's recognition, Jungkook is no longer a guest. He is seated at the main table. Yet a more difficult question now emerges: is Jungkook an exception sanctioned by the system to preserve an illusion of inclusivity, or is he an early sign of a far larger structural shift? Popular culture history is filled with examples of singular figures elevated as symbols of diversity without any substantive change following. In Jungkook's case, however, the sheer scale of his achievements makes such a strategy difficult to sustain. The numbers, records, and global impact are too vast to be reduced to tokenism. To this point, AOL's list of 15 global icons ceases to function as a list. It becomes a mirror, a reflection of the world's unpreparedness to fully accept the emerging reality taking shape. Jungkook, with all his complexity and influence, stands at the center of that mirror, compelling anyone who looks into it to ask, if one Asian artist can reach this point, how many others have been held back not by a lack of influence, but by limitations of perception? That question hangs unanswered, and perhaps it is not yet ready to be answered. But one thing is clear: With a single article, a single list, and a single name standing alone, AOL has opened a conversation far larger than who is the most famous person in the world. A conversation about cultural power, about shifting centers of global gravity, and about a future in which the term global icon no longer carries a dominant geographic accent. And at the heart of that conversation, Jungkook is no longer merely a subject. He has become a catalyst. After the initial wave of reactions subsided and social media euphoria began to settle into its own rhythm, one question lingered and grew increasingly unsettling. What are the long-term consequences of this recognition? When Jungkook was named the only Asian individual on AOL's list of global icons, the world was not merely witnessing the peak of an artist's career, but a turning point in how cultural influence is measured and distributed. Recognition of this kind rarely stands alone. It always carries implications both visible and deliberately obscured. For the global entertainment industry, particularly in the West, Jungkook's presence among presidents, billionaires, and sporting legends forces a re-examination of long-held assumptions. Cross-cultural collaborations have often been framed as market strategies, rather than acknowledgments of equal standing. Yet when an Asian artist is able to dominate major charts, lead global digital discourse, and be recognized by American media as an icon on par with the most influential figures in the world, the boundary between collaboration and coexistence begins to blur. This is no longer about opening doors for Asia. It is about realizing that those doors were broken down from within long ago. The final question then emerges, quieter yet sharper. Will the world pause at a single Asian name for now, or will this recognition mark the beginning of a broader redefinition of who is entitled to be called a global icon? The answer remains unclear, but one truth is undeniable. After AOL made this unexpected move, the world can no longer pretend that global influence has a single face, a single language, or a single direction. And amid this shift, the name Jungkook will be remembered as the point at which global fame ceased to be a monopoly and began to become a truly contested space.